This is the most extreme privacy project I've ever seen. They're building the most resilient anti-surveillance network that has no central authority and no jurisdiction. And this is the second time I get to talk with them. This is NYM, and I've reached out to their co-founder and chief operating officer Alexis Roussel to find out exactly how we rebuild the internet free from surveillance and control. NYM has some of the most stellar experts on its board, some of whom I met personally. The following conversation is true cyberpunk. Hello, Alexis. Thank you for coming on to talk with me. I'm very excited to have this opportunity because I'm actually talking about things that are very deeply troubling me and many people in my community. So again, thank you. And could you please maybe just introduce yourself very briefly about who you are and what you do so that people are more familiar with your work?
Hello. Well, thank you first for having me here. I'm really happy also. My name is Alexis Roussel, and I'm from Switzerland, and I'm the COO of NYM Technologies, which is a company which is behind the technology of NYM mixnet. We'll talk about this, I suppose, a bit later. Prior to this, I joined the project with Harry Halpin since end of 2019. And prior to this, I'm active in the crypto space since 2013. I created one of the oldest brokers in Switzerland. Back then, I was CEO for 6 years of a Bitcoin broker. And I'm also an activist in Switzerland regarding privacy and digital rights. So I wrote a book about the right to digital integrity, which is a fundamental right. And it's been adopted in Switzerland already in two local constitutions, in Geneva and in Neuchâtel. So I'm starting to have a small impact on digital rights and hopefully privacy in Switzerland.
Wow, that is absolutely phenomenal. And I wish that I was able to actually talk about everything that you just said there, but I think I'll have to just prioritize the topics that I actually sent you. But you have inspired me to actually ask you so much more about everything, literally everything that you just said there. Just to keep it structured.
If it goes well, we can do another one, right?
For sure, definitely. Yeah, I would definitely be inclined. Yeah, so many cyberpunk ideas there. So when it comes to NYM, so I'm a little bit familiar with NYM, although not that much, but I went to NYM opening conference in London and I met with Harry Halpin, and that was profoundly inspirational also because I've met with people that truly care about all of this stuff and have sacrificed a lot to get to the point where they are able to deliver on the promises and maybe on the desires that they themselves hold really dear. Like, building this NYM technology. That is something that is trying to completely transform how we communicate over the net. So maybe before we get to more of the complex and difficult questions, are you able to maybe describe what the priority of NYM at the moment is? What is it doing? It's a VPN, but it's more than just a VPN, right?
Yeah, it's more than the VPN. VPN is just like one of the applications we have on top of our infrastructure. So the core infrastructure of NYM is several pieces, but there is we'll take two of them. One, it's a mixnet, and the second one is this what we call the ZK NIMs, which are zero knowledge proofs. So the mixnet itself, it's a decentralized network, which is not peer-to-peer. It's a more has a certain distribution, and basically it's a communication network where if we are communicating together through the mixnet, basically our data will be cut into packets of all the same size and mixed with all the packets of everyone else, and then recombined on your side in a way that any observer who would be looking at the the NYM network wouldn't be able to say who's talking to who. So it is hiding the patterns of communications between two people. And yeah, that's the basic of the NYM mixnet. It's a bit like shuffling cards. If every packet is a card, every time it goes through one of the mixes, actually, it will shuffle, and the order of the packets is not the same. And we add also some noise, some fake packets, and we delay the packets. So there's a lot of techniques which basically avoids any pattern recognition from the outside. And in addition to this, what we do, because the network is a incentivized network, where you should be paying for accessing the network normally. So we also have zero knowledge proofs, which are very special, which allows us to give you a credential that shows that you have paid. And this credential, you can use it to open the gates, right? But we have to assure we have a problem of linkability. If I give you a token to open the gates, I can see when you're using this token. So what we designed is a ZK NYM, where every time you're using this proof, you actually can randomize it locally, so the key looks different, and so there's no correlation. We know you paid, but we don't know who issued this key. So basically, yeah, we have these two technologies together, which allows us to build some applications on top. And one of the applications that we are building is a VPN. Looks like a standard VPN. It has some few extra features that other VPNs don't have, but we're not focusing right now on them. We're focusing on making a normal VPN. But the extra features that we already have is that we can build a VPN where we are selling to customers who don't care about anything related to crypto, anything about the complexity of the network. They receive an app, they go there, they can pay in credit card or in cryptocurrency, and then they can use the VPN like a normal user. But because of the technology of the mixnet, of the decentralized network, of the zero knowledge proof, we have no way to know how they're using the VPN, and we only know that they paid. And that's it, and we give them access to the network. So this is the first product, and then once we have enough users, then we'll kind of like work on other products after.
Mm-hmm. And who is behind this? Not just in terms of people, but what is the structure of this organization? Is it a business or is it a nonprofit?
Yeah, so we are built as first as a business, and there's a community around. So the business itself is a small company, which is called NYM Technologies. It's located in Switzerland. Harry and me are on the board of this company, and this company is owned by the founders. So there is like all the equity is owned by the people who are working actively in the team. There's no outside investors. And then we have our community, and the community is providing the infrastructure. So the company only provides the code, right? We have devs in our team, and we are providing the code. And then the community is providing the resources in terms of compute and networking. So what it means is that like people around the world, they are setting up nodes or gateways, servers to maintain this infrastructure that people can use. And they are incentivized by tokens. And so we have this like internal kind of circular economy with our token, which is called the NYM token. And basically the initial investors actually purchased these tokens. So this is where we have the investment to actually fund the research and the development, and the users, when they pay for the VPN, they can pay in NYM directly if they want. They could use, if you acquire NYM, you could use the VPN without going through us. You could pay directly to the network. but we do this kind of like easy onboarding where you can pay in credit card or in Bitcoin or in Monero, Zcash, whatever, easy cryptocurrency for you. Even in cash, you can pay, you can send by mail. And basically, we are doing this interface easy for you so that we are buying the NIM tokens for you on the market. And then these NIM tokens are given through a mechanism online based on the work that people are doing, are giving to the community who's providing the resources. So it's like I see it sometimes like a big cooperative where people around the world are part of this cooperative. We have our internal coin for the money, the circulation, and you as a user, you would come from outside. You could actually buy directly this token, this coin, and use it. Or if you just want to make it easier, you can buy it to the company, which will do the complex things behind the scene. So that's the model we are developing and like helping for people to do to purchase this VPN. And then the community is doing the heavy lifting with the network, actually.
So you are also trying to profit from this network, but you are giving other people around the world to be part of this community to probably compete with you. So you're creating kind of like a new market for this?
So actually, we're not part of the network. So that's like a rule. We have, of course, we have a tiny infrastructure because we need to know how to run nodes and make sure that we are building. But the totality of the mainnet of the infrastructure is actually not run by us, and that's by design. And we can come to this later because that's actually one of the key things that avoids us to be able to log people. We don't own the infrastructure, so we cannot log anything. And of course we are of course, if people are using the mixnet more, of course we are going to benefit from this because we organize this market with the tokens, and the company the company NYM Technologies, of course, owns a treasury in tokens, which is being used to fund projects and developments by the community. And so if the system goes well, and if the whole economy of NYM is growing, then of course the company would kind of benefit and will be able to use this treasury to increase and to make more investment within the community.
So you are not even a VPN at all, to be honest, because a traditional VPN, even good ones like Mulvad VPN that's based out of Sweden, they still run their own servers. But what you're saying to me, if I understand you correctly, is that you, the company, you don't even run the network.
No, exactly.
Wow, that's an achievement, I have to say. Although we'll have to see with the time how that actually works out, right? Because that's got to be dangerous, for the people.
Yeah. So disclaimer: there might be few big bits and pieces, if people are looking, which are being run by us and are being decentralized. But the core, the actual entry points and exit points, or where the users are, traffic is going through, this is not run by us. So that will be it's at the same time a challenge, and it's at the same time an opportunity. The challenge is that, of course, there is a very few projects like us, so we will see what are the impact when you're managing your own infrastructure. You have things much more in control in terms of quality assurance, for example. You know exactly what is happening on the server, and if you're Mulvad, for example, you know what is the load on the machines, and we will have to define, when we're going to scale. The load will be managed by a number of small SMEs around the world that have one or few NYM gateways or mixnode. So we have to coordinate them. And basically, we're already doing this a lot. We have this very strong community because they have to update the system from time to time. They have to, for example, we have quite a strict policy to avoid too much spam on the network. So we are using the same approach as Tor, where the ports are not fully open. We have a list of open ports that we allow. And basically, one of the process that we have is user will complain that this port is not working and we've been a bit too restrictive. So instead of opening the port ourselves, we have to actually ask the community, hey guys, can you update your software and can you open this extra port? And they actually they have to do it. And so we have a governance process where they actually vote. And maybe they can accept or they can refuse. So we had a small debate recently with the SMTP port because we were a bit too restrictive, and then people started to complain that they couldn't send emails in certain cases. So we went back to the community, we discussed this, and they decided to open it. And now we can use properly SMTP all over the network.
Right. So I assume that this community could actually run the network without any permission from you?
Yeah, that's no. They don't need permission at all, actually. Already now.
So they don't.
So you can set up a node, and there's a mechanism with the token where basically you need to, in order to have an active node, you need enough stake. It's a small proof of stake system. You need enough stake, and the stake represents your reputation, your ability to bring some liquidity towards you. Of course, you can buy yourself this liquidity and put it on your machine. Or you can advertise your machine and get some liquidity from others. But basically, as soon as you have a full a node which is fully loaded, let's say, then you have more chance. The more tokens you have, the more chances you have to be part of the active network. And once you are part of the active network, then you're getting revenues from the users. And so there's a kind of competition, and everyone can participate. Of course, the more people are there, it's a bit like Bitcoin mining, right? The more people are putting nodes, the less revenue there is for everyone, right? It's the number of revenue per hour is the same, and it's just divided by among more people. So there's a balance, and there I think this is one of the places where NYM had a huge success. Is that since we're live, since 2022, it's like now 4 years that the network is live. And even before, we didn't have a product that was paying, and the network was incentivized. And we always had a huge number, like several hundreds nodes running through the network. And today, we throughout those 4 years, we never had a time where we didn't have any network or any computer. We always had hundreds of mixed nodes and gateways. So that is really like something that we're really proud of.
And that also means that if you are taken down, the network can still run globally.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Yes, and the objective is to go as fast as we can to the point where this is like really 100% effective. Because of course today we're still in heavy development. So, I mean, obviously if NYM was being taken down today, the network would not crash instantly. But all the effort of development, like new features, few things that we were working on is made by the company. So obviously there might be some kind of like time or lag for the community to pick up, but at least everything is open source and everything can be. Everything the community could already take over right now. But I think right now the incentive is not there because the company is working and the team is producing. So, but yeah, that could be one of the scenario if tomorrow we are just like removed from the surface of the planet because for some regulatory reason or whatever, the network actually would continue. Yeah.
Yes, but there could be this motivation to take you down. So let's talk about that. It is my understanding that your company is based out of Switzerland, like Threema or Proton, and now even Session, probably. And
Yeah.
it used to be the case, and it used to be very well understood that Switzerland had very good privacy and secrecy laws, and
Mm.
these were leveraged by these companies. That's why they were established there. But now there
Yeah.
seems to be a shift in Switzerland, and that is something that even the direct democratic process in the country, unfortunately, seems to be on the side of, and approves constantly the encroaching expansion of surveillance in this country. And we see that there are now new proposals in Switzerland that are starting to push companies like Proton to want to move out of Switzerland because of these laws. So,
Mm.
could you please maybe describe the current situation, and then we will get into what you guys are doing about this?
Yeah. So the it's a very complex system because we have this direct democracy or semi-direct democracy and a consensus-based mechanism throughout the country. Things take much more time, and yeah, it's harder to push very bold measures, but people try. And since few years, we have we always had a surveillance law for traditional communication, but it was extended to digital communication already for some time. But this was only affecting the intent at that time was to only listen to phone communications. So then they extended this to internet communication, like physical lines. So a judge could request an ISP to give some type of data. And but the thing is now the world is changing, the technology is changing, and we have the people who are using the technology don't rely on the basic infrastructure. They rely more on applications. It's application level, and there's much more cryptography all around being used to do end-to-end encryption. So of course this pushes the police or the security forces in Switzerland also to be interested into getting access to some extra other layers. And there is an ordinance basically that was pretty recent, basically, where the federal judicial department, I don't know, probably has a name in English, made a change in an ordinance, which is a kind of it's a document. It's like an executive order in the U.S. Basically, it's an order made by the executive branch, and they said, okay, if you are a VPN provider, an email provider, or a messaging app provider, basically anything that provides a communication tool to people, and you have more than 5,000 users, you will have to ask for an ID for everyone. And additionally to this, you will have to store metadata for at least, I don't remember if it's 6 months or 2 years, but anyway, you have to store metadata. And if you're really, really big, you have more than 1 million users, which we don't have yet, but Proton and Threema, they definitely have. Then you need also to have a 24-hour team on call that can answer in 5 minutes to any request from the federal police.
Wow.
And so they went really crazy on, right? It was like everyone was shocked about this ask. And then they do, because it was Switzerland, so they make this proposal, and then it has to go through a consultation process. So when we see this, we're like, okay, why do they go crazy like this, right? They never asked us before, and Threema and Proton said, well, actually they tried, but every time they tried to ask information to us, to Proton and Threema, they went to the court and they said no. And the federal court, gave Trema and Proton several times, I think 3 times in a row, they gave them right. They said, no, you, the federal police, you're not allowed to get this data from Proton because the law says, doesn't say you're allowed to. So they were so pissed about the fact that they couldn't get this data that instead of going and change the law, actually what they do is they make an executive order, which is actually changing the law. And that's not good. So we said this. But what happened, what is interesting, is that they only had a vision which was about the pure opportunity as an enforcement agency to have access to the data. They didn't look at more global impact that it would have. And so this is where the Swiss democracy is quite interesting, is that we made a lobby, and the lobby was, so the industry, so Trema, Proton, me, NYM, and some others, we started lobbying and saying, well, this is not cool because it's going just to destroy our businesses, full stop. And during the consultation process, the political parties said it, like, contributed to the process and said it was not a good idea. And also, like, cantons, so like the states, so state of Geneva, state of Neuchâtel, where we are because we're in Neuchâtel, actually we contacted the state, the canton, and says, hey, you should say something about it because you're going to lose companies. And they sent a message which was negative. They said, hey, what the fuck are you doing, right? You didn't take into consideration the economical side, you didn't take into consideration the human rights side. You just want to have this data because you think you need it for just enforcement purposes, but you didn't look at the impact. So the result was interesting, is that they publicly removed the consultation. So they said, okay, we're not going to push for this text. But right now it's a waiting game because they said, okay, we are going to make an impact analysis. So we're going to, like, ask a private company to make a study and to see what is the impact in Switzerland, and then we'll come up with a new version of the text. So yeah, so this is where we are at now. So it's interesting because the Swiss democracy was able to push back because there was, like, this lots of different type of people who were upset about it, and it was like not only the industry but also, like, political parties and some of the cantons were upset. And so they delayed the thing. But what didn't change is that they still want to do it, right? They still want to do it. And they came up with this, like, really bad argument, which is always this same argument. There is a fundamental misconception between the senior level of the administration who wants to put in place the surveillance and what we understand on our side. So what we understand is, as soon as you are putting automatic surveillance, because if you do data retention, right? So that means you need, for every connection that someone is doing, you need to keep the logs of the metadata for whatever, 6 months or 2 years, and then on request of a judge, you are going to provide this data to the judge, right? And it can be back in time, so they can look back in the time for some period. And what they say is that surveillance only happens when the data is accessed. And we say, no, surveillance happens as soon as the data is collected. There is a difference, right? So they don't see this as mass surveillance because they will only access the data through a judge from time to time when there's a procedure. And we say, no, mass surveillance is forced collection of data constantly, which they want us to do it. So there's a fundamental misunderstanding, and I think this misunderstanding between the Federal Department of Justice and us is not solved yet. So we will see. It's pushing down the line, but it's not solved yet.
So let's expand that argument. Why is it bad to just collect the data? Isn't that a good compromise on the side of the law enforcement to try to at least have you meet in the middle and say, well, we are not going to be always looking at the data, but we will want you to collect the data for us and then have the judge decide when we are allowed to look at the data. Isn't that a good compromise between law enforcement and privacy?
No, no. So the good compromise is what we have right now. So the situation right now, and it happened to Proton, and I'm pretty sure it happened to Trema. It didn't happen to us, so we don't know. But is the fact that if there is something happening, like a procedure, like an affair, like some threat, whatever, the judge and the police, they can go to see an operator, and they say, well, we think that now someone is using your network for bad purposes. You have to start logging this specific user or this specific connection. Yeah? So you start logging from now, and they put a device, or they ask you to put the logs into a certain file, and they're looking at this, right? So this is like active surveillance, which then can be we can pinpoint very precisely who is going to be surveilled, right? And the technician of the company are usually involved, and they have to, they will make sure it's really what we're looking at. And this is already allowed in Switzerland, and this is already fine for, what they want to is look backwards in time. So this is where we start to have a problem, because backwards mean what? Means you have to collect all the data and you have to store it. That means there's many different kind of problems. First, you have to store this data. It is costly, and of course, it's not going to be the cost of the government. It's going to be forced upon you to store and to have all this capacity, the storage capacity that you have to manage. And you also have to manage the interface with them, because they want something automated, and by designing the law, they force you to have something automated. And then what will happen, we see this everywhere, is that it's a one-way route. You first start collecting data, and they will tell you we will only get it when we ask for it. And the next step is, oh, you know what? Let's make it easier. Just send the stream directly to us, and we will select the data we want, right? And it will go on like this. So we see this in financial surveillance, in other types of surveillance. They always start by going step by step and asking more and more. And so, like, when you start collecting the data, you have it, and of course it will leak, because any company that is storing data at one point will be attacked, and it might leak, because no one is perfect, right? In protecting the servers. And I don't. If we were to store data, I'm pretty sure at one point, even if we have the best engineers to secure our network, at one point data would leak. So the best data, in order not to leak data, is not to have the data. That's the golden rule, right? If you don't want to have a leak, don't store the data, and then you have like the more philosophical or even business model related. Once you collect data, basically collecting data is so costly that what you're trying to do naturally is to move into a place where storing this data is actually creating a revenue for you somehow. And then you move into surveillance capitalism, and you move into a place where I don't want to go. Some VPNs, they are collecting all this data, and what they are doing now, they are being data broker, and they are reselling the profiling they can do on their own users, because they have all this data, right? And that's totally not what I want to do. I want to be able to showcase in Switzerland and in the world that we can have successful, safe business model where by default you don't collect the data. These are like no log businesses, right? And actually my theory there is that we should be able to make more money than companies who are using collecting the data, because they have to build up such a big infrastructure to collect and manage the data and analyze and resell the data. So not having any data forces you to focus on the real service that you're doing, and you're providing a true privacy software for your user. And I think that's something we need to be able to showcase. And that's what I'm going to defend in Switzerland also.
That's very interesting. So let's test this hypothesis, because it's segueing perfectly to my other questions that I wanted to ask. So you described a scenario that happened to, you mentioned Proton and Threema, where under the current establishment in Switzerland, the government can somehow compel these companies to start logging information for specific individual targets. And I always want to know what that looks like. How is that transpiring? And we know from Proton's French activist case, and we know from other cases where this can happen. But how can it happen to you? You are based in Switzerland, so you will be bound by these laws. So
yeah.
Can you actually be compelled to breach your no-log policy or start collecting information on people? And if so, what kind of information are you able to collect and provide?
Good. So here it's really interesting, because of course we are compelled. I mean, we're not. If the police knock on the door with the judge, with the warrant and the judge, we cannot say no. We don't want to do this, right? So we're going to say, of course, you're welcome. What do you want? Let's try to get it. And what we will see is that basically they wouldn't be able to get anything. So and we try to describe this at best in our policies, which sometimes are a bit confusing by people, because we say, of course we're going to comply. I mean, we don't want to go to jail personally because we're not complying, but the way we're going to comply makes it the structure of our network makes it impossible for them to get the data that they want. So right now, today, if you're using the network, we won't be able to say which server you're using, which gateway you're using, what is your entry point, your exit point, on which website you're going, everything. All your traffic data, we don't have it. Zero, full stop. We don't have it. We don't know when you are connecting on the network. We don't know. We don't know where you're coming from. So what do we know? We know only if you are using the payment system to purchase the VPN at NYM. So if you're using your credit card, or if you're using a non-privacy coin, if you're using Bitcoin, for example, to pay, then we can say to the police, well, we think, because we don't have even the email address, and we don't log anything, we log the payments, so we can tell, okay, well, this person there with this Bitcoin address, maybe, they purchased a VPN at our place, and that's the only information we can give to them, basically. And this is interesting because the ordinance had few elements, like I told you. It was saying one, you have to ID the people who are using the VPN.
Yes.
You have to log the activity. You also have to give the keys out. If you have private keys that are encrypting communication channels with the users, between the company and the user, you have to give those keys. And basically, the ordinance, except on the ID, because of course, if we have someone who's coming and purchasing from us directly, that would apply to us, right? We would have to say, okay, you need to present an ID. But all the provisions of the ordinance that are forcing us to log their network or to give keys away, when you don't have any keys, what can you give away? We don't have any keys of the network. The keys are between the users and the gateways that they're using. So basically, our design is already putting us far of reach of the ordinance, but we are still fighting against this ordinance because it does affect us on the ID side. So there, it's very stupid. It would just like, oh, you have to ID everyone, and you have to give to actually ask for a physical ID to like a copy of the ID for and you need to register the name and the person. And this is actually, they are using the same model that we have for the phone, for the SIM cards. I don't know if you remember, we had this phase where before SIM cards were anonymous, you could just buy a SIM card. It was, you didn't have to give out a name. And then because of the war on terror, then they figured that some terrorists were using SIM cards, and so they forced everyone to also to ask for the ID to get a SIM card. Of course, there's millions of ways to go around this, but that's the law. So they work by analogy. They say, yeah, the same way, if you're getting a phone, you should give your ID, so you should give the ID for the VPN. So that this is what we're fighting for. But what is interesting is that in the future, that is going to be more complicated, because we also have the feature which is in place already. We do talk about it in our community, but you can, if you want, purchase the VPN, the service of the VPN, without going through us. You can pay directly the network. You have to be tech savvy a bit, right? But you can purchase the tokens yourself. You can put them into a wallet. You can run command line interface with our VPN, and you can consume your own tokens without going through us. So again, it's a mechanism where the VPN could work, and we don't even know that you're actually buying the VPN. So we cannot ask you to give us an ID if we were forced to. So that's the next level where we want to go if they continue to push these kind of like stupid legislation.
Well, but when you say nothing, or that you don't have anything, you cannot give anything, these are very extreme words, and I want to really understand that we are on the same page by what you mean there. You mean that you don't even know the IP address of the users? You don't know the IP address of the websites that people visit?
No.
How come?
Well, because you're going to download the app on your phone, right?
Right.
And then the first thing you are going to do is you're going to purchase your subscription. So you have to connect to us, right? So here, when you're purchasing, we would see if we would log them, we would see which IP address you're coming from, right? We don't do this, but let's say worst case scenario, police comes in, now you have to log people who are purchasing your system. So we would see the IP address. Okay. And we receive your funds through credit card or Bitcoin, whatever, and then we send you a token. We send you a zero knowledge proof, actually a credential. We send you a credential in your phone so that you can use this to open the network. So you have downloaded the list of all the gateways on your phone. And then when you want to start using your phone, your VPN, you have to select an entry point and an exit point in the network. And you selected yourself, right? We don't select those gateways for you. You select one of them, and you connect directly to this gateway. So there is no more connection to the company infrastructure. You would connect directly to a gateway. You will give them the proof that you've paid, which looks different than the one we gave you because you have randomized it locally. And then you would connect to an exit point, which is another server around the globe, which you will do the same exercise. You'll say, hey, I paid so I can go through. And they will know on which website you are going, but they are far away into like another country because it's not managed by us. So you have one gateway that we don't manage who knows your IP address, and there's another gateway who is not managed by us either, who knows on which website you're going. So basically, if you're a user of NYM and you're using an entry point in France and an exit point in, let's say, in the US, well, they have to organize, they have to catch three different companies, three different people in three jurisdictions, and people that have almost no relationship. I mean, we don't know who is running a gateway, and you can change a gateway instantly in a matter of seconds. So so from the company point of view, we don't know on which gateways you're connecting. So we just don't have this data. We don't have any traffic data of you.
So you really solved the problem that all VPNs have, which is that they own or somehow rent the servers in all of these other countries where people are connecting to and VPNing out of. And
yeah, exactly.
Right.
So the best solution that we have seen in centralized VPNs right now, I think, is the Mulvad Plus. I don't remember which other partners, where they kind of like partner together, and you can use one company servers as the entry and the others as an exit, right? So which is cool. I mean, that's like they're trying to go into that direction. But here, what we said is like basically we just don't own the infrastructure itself. So it's like then it's clear that we have no grip on the data which is on the network.
But if there were an order to get you to get you to lock that data, you would only be able to say that that's technologically impossible for you to do, right?
Well, we wouldn't be able to say this because it is technology possible. So, but how is it possible? We would have to update the source code of the nodes, and we would have to publish this code on our GitHub, and then we would have to ask everyone to use this new version of the software with the malicious code inside. That would be pretty obvious, basically. We don't even need a canary. I mean, like people would be able to see what is happening in the code. So that's a protection mechanism. Logging would happen directly on the software which is open source.
Would you have to actually publish the code? Wouldn't that client be downloaded by like an app store or something?
Yeah, well, that's interesting. I don't think in Switzerland they would be with today's legal system. They wouldn't be able to do so. They couldn't force us to publish code which would enable logging or create a backdoor. There is no such provision in Swiss law right now that would force them to do that can force us to do so. Maybe in the future. That's probably. It's possible. I mean, because we're going this way in Europe, and UK is like definitely one of the places where they're pushing hardest on this, and obviously, of course, some other country like Russia, that they don't even need a law to say this. They just push this into everyone's devices anyway. But at the end, if it would happen in Switzerland, first. That's going to be a hard sell to the legal system in Switzerland. Very hard sell to do. And second, if that ever happens, then the protection is in this open source code.
Well, hopefully. Let's talk about the UK now, since you mentioned this. And we know about the situation with Apple in the UK, but if people don't know, it's just generally this again another order trying to compel Apple to provide encryption keys for iCloud backups. And it's almost the same principle as it's the case for VPNs and communication tools. It's trying to get the companies to hijack the privacy of their own users. And Apple, unfortunately, was not able to fight this because under the legal establishment in the UK, you're not really allowed to do anything. You have to comply. Even if you appeal to some kind of court authority, you still have to comply with the request from the law enforcement or a government agency in the UK. And so Apple was requested to actually build backdoor to advanced data protection to iCloud, which is end-to-end encryption for iCloud. And they wanted to have this option to be available globally. So for the UK law enforcement or UK agencies, but on any user, not just a UK resident or a UK citizen. And now I want to know, how would any other company respond to this, like Signal, like a VPN company, even Tor operators? And also, I have to ask this question to you guys, right? You are going to have one answer as a company, but what would happen to people that would want to run nodes in the UK? And how would people in the UK be able to access NYM when they have to, when you and all these other operators would have to comply with the laws?
Yeah. So right now I'm going to have a very speculative answer because we haven't experienced anything of this. So it's more what could happen and how we will want to answer when you're facing the reality. Sometimes the answers are can be different than what you expected your answer would be. It's speculation right now because we're very small. We still have a few thousands of users, and I don't think we've been recognized globally as a system that is actually being endangering somebody. We are being noticed, right? We are being noticed in some countries, and we are being censored already in some countries. But these are countries where they are extremely advanced in censorship, and they don't have a due process. So right now in UK we're too small, so we didn't have any requests from the UK. But if we had to answer tomorrow about the request on the UK, right now our stand would be to use the same stand as Signal. So Signal stand with Meredith was to say, well, you know what? You want us to impose backdoors, so we're just going to go out of UK. That's fine. We're just going out of UK. So going out of UK as a company means that we're going to remove from the stores because this is a regulated place. So we won't be on the UK store anymore, Google and Apple store. But obviously we will still be on F-Droid, right? We will still be, you can still download the APK directly. Or you can still get the code and compile yourself if you want to. So users in UK would still be able to get the software. Then there's the question of the nodes. We don't have any infrastructure ourselves in UK, so we have nothing to shut down in the UK. And the people in the UK could still, well, you have some nodes in the UK for sure. And so there's the question of like, okay, would the people in the UK running nodes be at risk? And maybe this I don't know the answer. It's very hard. Someone who's running a mixed node itself, there we have different kind of nodes, right? We have the entry gateway, we have the mixed nodes, and we have the exit gateway, and they all have different kinds of like functionalities. The entry gateways know your IP address. The exit gateway knows on which website you're going, and the mixed nodes in between, they don't know anything. They just like forward traffic. So they don't have relationship with you as a user of the network. They just mix your traffic, which is already mixed before for them. A mixed node is very hard to censor in terms like legally because you don't have connection with the user. So I think those would still be running, and you could focus on the gateways, and the gateways, if it's run professionally, it's in a data center with a fixed IP address, then you can easily get a notice, and people are getting notice from time to time in our network already, and they are usually it's for copyright infringement or these kind of things. So we have a template. You can say, well, sorry, we're like Tor, or we're like a service, and it's not, we're not the ones seeding anything, so it's not us. So that already pushes away a lot of people. But theoretically, you could have a government like UK who says, oh, we identified you as an exit gateway or as an entry gateway, and you should comply and put logging on your server. Um, okay, that could happen, but I think at one point people would notice. And what it's not, so people could just shut down their machines. So, but we have two options that are available. I mean, one is already available, and the second we want to have it available in the near future. So the first option is basically if you don't have any more nodes in the UK, people can just connect to a node in another country. So you can have your entry points if you're in UK, you can have your entry point in Ireland, and then move out into another place, right? So they would have to not just ban the gateways which are in the country, but also ban all the gateway for a user to reach any gateway around the world. That starts to be more complicated because you're really like scanning IP ranges and having to block IP ranges from the ISPs in UK. And the other options that we are looking into is that we want, and this is the power of like these kind of like networks that we are running, is we're going to have the option of the user himself to share his own computer, his own internet connection to the network. We call this residential IP. So basically, you're running your mixnode at home. You're running your VPN at home. You paid for it. You're running it. You're just a user, and then you have a button which you say, "Hey, share my internet connection," and then you can actually become a relayer or become an exit point or an entry point for people around you. And that is something which is the next level, where basically how do you as a government go and look for individuals in their homes to tell them, well, you're not supposed to run this specific software. Well, they can. They already did it in some cases, but it just like pushes the needle way further in terms of like what the government has to do to block you. So the options to go around this are many, basically. And it would be it's anyway a losing game for the government, right? You can see what is happening in Iran. The only option they had at the end is just to shut down everything. That's the only measure where they can keep actually control. But them shutting down internet means you're losing your country completely at the end. So fighting for the tools that we are building, and it's not just us, it's the whole privacy industry, are building tools which, because there is this kind of like very funny system. Is like our main goal is to provide anonymity and privacy. Right? That's the main goal. And but because these tools are being monitored and censored, we are becoming at the same time expert in anti-censorship mechanism, right? And that was not the purpose of the tool. The tool is to provide privacy, but because it's being blocked in many places, then we have to fight it off, and we create these like systems. So we implemented Quick now, which is starting to work in China, go through the Chinese firewall. We have people in places like Russia, which are also using these kind of systems, and it's more or less successful, but sometimes they can make it work. So basically, a country which is supposed to be the rule of law, when it has to censor tools which are already fighting the worst networks around the world, it's going to be complicated for them, I guess.
So you think it is realistic for you to be able to defeat even the omnipotent censorship of China or even Russia?
Well, it's I don't say we don't have a silver bullet, but right now we have people in China using our VPN, and same in Russia. Yeah.
Wow, that's actually pretty big. Yeah, because I haven't seen that many VPNs being able to succeed in this. Even Tor may have some difficulties.
Yeah. It's like so for people who are able to use it, it could be sometimes technical to like set it up and like it's there. They need some weird configuration sometimes. But it's so if people really want, they can go through, especially China. I mean, they can. Russia is a bit specific because it's moving now to a more lockdown system, and they're going to whitelist internet, and probably in a few months they will just disconnect also internet completely, a bit like in Iran. So this is what we're seeing happening right now. So yeah, I'm a bit. There's not much hope for the Russian network, but in China, yeah, it does work. The thing is that Chinese uh, censorship, they cannot they cannot afford to cut off internet completely from the outside, so they always need to leave some passage, and then you can always go through those passages, and you can go through those undetected. So the thing is that we have at NIM, I think this is one of the competencies that we have. We're still very early on this stage, but we have this mindset and competency that maybe others don't have. We know what anonymity is, and privacy and anonymity are two different things, right? Anonymity is like hiding in the mask so that you are not getting seen. You're not your digital footprint is not observable, right? And it's different just to be private, meaning that you cannot read what I'm saying right now or what I'm writing. It's a different concept. So we are using the same concept to go through using all the, lots of the techniques are known techniques, but we are using all those techniques to go through the system. So what I mean by coming back to the UK is like, okay, how would a rule of law country, if we expect that UK remains a country of rule of law, how would they, and that's supposed to respect fundamental rights for people, how would they go to the point where they're enforcing the software you're using on your phone directly, right? Russia is doing it. They're forcing everyone to use this Max application. But will we have one day like a UK government applications that will be forced to be upon everyone? We'll see.
So Russia is able to defeat NIM and others too, right? Not just you specifically.
Yeah. No, well, they're not. It's not about defeating NIM. They're just shutting down the whole internet. It's just different. Right. It's another dimension basically right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have many of these choke points throughout the world, the digital world. Even if we talk about just mobile, most people are getting access to their apps through Google and Apple, and these companies, as you said, are regulated, and they themselves oftentimes employ rules that are not necessarily required, but they just want to stay on the safe side for the shareholder value, and they can just kick you out of the app store, and people just not know about you. It is a way people access apps, but it is also a way people discover apps. So these gateways are very problematic. And what we truly need is something that is more fundamental than just hoping that we can find a new tech that internet service providers and these other gatekeepers allow us to use. Don't you think that we also need to start thinking of building some sort of a new backbone infrastructure or something that allows people to have a completely permissionless network throughout the world, if that is something that's even impossible?
Yeah. So that's the dream, right? We go into the dream now.
We can go into the dream, yeah.
Let's go into the utopia. So I think the right now we are good enough. We have the technology to have overlay networks which can provide security. So we can discuss together around the world if we are enough tech savvy, and we can keep ourselves pretty safe. But it's not available to everyone because it requires like people to know the right software and to know how to use them, and like you said, they might not be available because they're censored from Google Pay, Google Store and App Store, and the Apple Store. So one thing first before I go into the utopia is that what is interesting is when you look at what is happening with Google and Apple Store in China, the Google Store in China, which was kind of banned. Basically, it forces the Chinese to create alternative. So whenever you have a censorship like this, and then apps disappear of the store, or the whole store disappear, people. So most of the people will just lose access to it. Okay, but it increases the number of people who are saying, "Hey, but I want to have this app," and they try to find a way around. And so you have alternative stores which are popping up. Or like it happened in UK, in France some time ago, and every time you put censorship for copyright or for whatever, or age verification for porn, you can see that the number of people who are understanding what a VPN is just like jumping up. So every time censorship is moved on, is pushed further, it also creates an educational effect on the population, which is not huge, but it's like slow shifting more and more every time. So that's kind of like a hope that people are getting more and more used to this, and then they learn about this, and that's make it more complicated for the states to go behind them. So, but the utopia is really to actually at one point, so the network, the physical network layer is basically the place where you have control at the end. So, and the physical layer is not just the cables themselves, it's also the buildings and the companies and the people who are running all of this. So, if you are a network, an ISP in a country, and the government is, you can be pro privacy, pro whatever. If the government is coming to see you in your facility, threatening to put you into jail, will you comply? Yeah, of course you will comply, right? They can send their own engineers in your facilities, and they will do whatever they want. So. At the end, the physical infrastructure is right now becoming the weak point. And what is happening is we're building this new society, digital society, which has its own money, which is Bitcoin, which has its own networks, peer-to-peer networks, which has its own culture, and so on. And this digital society at one point will not be able to thrive without having control over its network, a physical network. And I think what will happen is that we are going to design a mesh network that will take over the world. How, in which format it will be, I don't know, because the type of technology that is required is still maybe not available. People talk about LoRa, Wi-Fi is too small. GSM might not be, or like cellular is maybe not the right technology. Also, we need to find the right technology for mesh networks, and then we need to find the right incentive mechanism for people to use and connect to this mesh network, and we need to build a mechanism where at the same time, the mesh network will be so much better than the existing network that people will have an incentive to go there, because this is where things will be better. And at the same time, it has to be cheap enough, or even like the financial incentive needs to make it better also. So, but this is how I see. And then eventually, hopefully, this mesh network will have built-in anti-censorship mechanisms, so that because it's a peer-to-peer network, because it's mesh, because it will be so much distributed among Internet of Things, like every object that needs to connect to the Internet would be part of this mesh network. For example, it wouldn't be just a human network; it would be let's say a machine network. And there, your privacy and your anonymity would be actually uh, enforced by design. So that would be a privacy by design system also. So that's the utopia, and I think we are going into that direction because I see many projects working towards building mesh networks. We already have like ideas of how to make the incentive mechanism. We are coming to a moment where, in terms of hardware, the computers are getting more and more standardized. So you have these like Raspberry Pi type of computers which can do everything, and they can connect on a network. And basically, if you're building any kind of appliance, you're using those. You know, if you're building a wash disher and a washing machine and a TV, you basically use the same hardware for all of them now. And they all like have network capabilities. So all these hardware will become cheaper and easier to build, more standardized. We'll have more moving object also, like cars and drones and whatever. So they all will have an interest in being connected to a network which is easy to use and where data is protected correctly. So I think we can see this tendency, but obviously government will try to keep control of this, and this I don't know how they will do, but there will be definitely an attention. So the utopia is this: is that at one point there will be a free universal, free in the sense not free money wise, because it will probably have a cost to connect to or to use resources. But it will be free in the sense it won't ask for your name. It will be inclusive. Anyone can connect, and then and from there you can communicate with everyone around the world. And it will be it will be one of the founding layer of the digital society of tomorrow.
And how far do you think we are away from this in terms of years or decades?
I think it's decades.
Yeah, okay. That's very utopian.
But I warned you. It was utopia and the dream. I warned you before, right?
I mean, I've also arrived at this conclusion that we need something that turns every single device into this Wi-Fi wireless somehow radio network that is permissionless and allows everybody to transmit all of their information, their data. It is consent-based, and you cannot force...
Exactly.
Yeah, you cannot force things on people like you can right now with centralized networks, and it completely gets rid of the need to have any kind of intermediary. You wouldn't even need like corporate social networks because you would be able to curate everything yourself, and you would never have to worry about the internet being shut down or cut off. In like normal cases, not even in a case of some autocratic government taking over, but also in terms of there's a natural disaster cutting all the wires and taking down the telecommunication networks, you would still be able to have this wireless communication. Something like Briar, for instance, is kind of designed to work around. So it's able to work over Bluetooth as well as Wi-Fi. Doesn't really need the internet to work. So yeah, something like that. But I do realize that this is something that's probably like so many years into the future that it is just a dream at this point. But you said that you're thinking of some incentive structure. I guess that's going to be like similar to whatever you're doing now.
Maybe I think there will be incentive structure because otherwise you don't have an incentive to put hardware on this network. Right now, like the internet right now is built by companies and mostly companies who are setting up fiber across the ocean and having data centers and stuff like this. They have a financial incentive to do this. They invest into this hardware and then they rent it, right? And you buy it through your ISP in order for people to actually buy devices and have the incentive to put these devices in the mesh network that would exist then, there would be also there would have to be some kind of incentive mechanism, and I think we can kind of start scraping or like having an idea how it would look like. That indeed, if I'm putting my device into a network, it would start to do some work. It would do some work, whatever kind of work. It could be privacy work, it could be mining, it could be security work, or mining is security, but it could be sharing of CPU, sharing of hard drive, sharing of memory, sharing of network. So all these kind of like resources that the machine has, or it could be a sensor in the real world. It could be like a heat, like a thermometer, or it could be something is going to act in the world, like a lock, or an object, whatever, an object who can actually do something in the world. So all these things, there might not be one unique incentive structure, but they definitely can be like there will be incentive structure for these devices to be active on the network and participate in the mesh network. Because remember, if you want to be to participate in if you want to be in a peer-to-peer network, you need to be active there, right? Mm-hmm. And the biggest challenge actually is we said one is technology, the type of technology to communicate. I think that's one of the challenge where we still don't know which one it's going to be, and or if it exists. Maybe it will just be forever a completely mix of everything. That's possible also between the existing cable, fiber, and then Wi-Fi and LoRa and whatever satellite connections, right? And then the other thing is also like the challenge of the cost of network discovery. So once you're in a peer-to-peer network, the way you discover a peer in the network, or you talk to someone else on the other side of the network, is much more complex to manage than on the traditional internet, where we have centralized this system. So you have the DNS, and the DNS is something like very centralized because it's managed by ICANN, which is an organization. They have 11 servers around the world, and then people replicate those servers. And it's very easy to censor those servers. And basically, those servers, they tell you for which name, where, if you like type google.com or whatever website.com or .fr, it will tell you which IP address you have to go to, and you will find the route to that through other protocols. They will tell you, okay, if you want to get to this IP, then you have basically, this is the way you can go to this IP, and this is pretty much centralized. It's a service provided by your ISP, but if you're in a mesh network, then this is becoming more complicated. How do you find the person on the other side? And there's many discovery protocols which exist, but right now the technology is not far enough that it still faces the problem that the bigger the network is, the more complex, and it's a logarithmic exponential figure. The more you have people, the more complex it becomes to find someone on a network on a logarithmic scale, right? And so right now we cannot scale peer-to-peer network in a very massive way. So that's one thing we'll have to solve also.
Okay, so having this utopian dream in mind, what would you tell my community that we can do today? How can we help them? How can we help bring this closer to reality? What can we do?
Well, the best thing you can do right now is to actually be involved in like testing and testing on how to host nodes. I know it's something which is a bit complicated, but like having a small computer, or like your normal one device in your home network, which is sharing the network, and is running either a NIM node or some kind of other mesh protocol. And because every time someone is running a node, this is giving feedback to the people who are building the project. It's giving them extra data points on how to scale and if it works or not. Yeah, that is my and my advice is by doing so, and at the same time by using the services that we are building on it. So using VPN, for example, and using communication systems which try to abide to those new principles of peer-to-peer decentralization and anonymity and privacy and by design and these kind of things, because then these are spaces first which are liberty spaces, freedom spaces, and are really cool to explore. So it's pretty amusing to go and explore those spaces.
Can you
I
name
have to say.
names?
No, it's any kind of things, like if you are, I'm watching like people who are testing NIM and try to understand a bit how it's working. A lot of people, we have like crazy feedback from our users saying, well, thanks to you, I discovered. I mean, we have like a lot of blog posts, on our website where we deep dive into mechanism of like how anonymity works and privacy or decentralization or whatever, and it opens up the eyes of like people saying, wow, I'm learning things with you, and then they try something else, and then they for example, right now I'm more and more into Nostr. I don't know if you know Nostr.
I do know,
But
yeah.
you don't know Nostr. Okay, so I mean, I've been watching this from the start, but there has been already some evolution. So now with the local community here in Neuchâtel, we are setting up more and more our communication through Nostr with our community center, which is a co-working space where our agenda is on Nostr, and we have a Nostr node that is running for us. So we're testing all these things, all these type of technology, and basically those technologies are technologies where you are free. No one can stop you there. Of course, it doesn't have the reach of others, but this is okay, because this is something which is actually, I think, one of the evil of our society right now. One of the evil of the surveillance capitalism is because all this data is transparent. And they can also see all the connections, all the social graph. Basically, what they do is they use their algorithm, which are advertising algorithm, to create echo for content which they think that you will like, because they have a good algorithm that can define your psychological profile, right? And so when you're going onto the big corp internet, you are fed with like lots of data or information which actually you didn't want. And in the alternative world, which is a peer-to-peer and privacy world, then there is no data to build up there's no way to build your profile the same way, and there's no way to push you data on you that you don't want. So you're actually shielded from all this crap that is coming around you, and then basically it's up to you to decide, okay, I'm going to connect with this person and we are going to have a discussion, or I'm going to connect with this feed and I'm going to consume this feed of information that I chose, and I can choose to stop it. So people who are in this world are much more in control, and they're not fed with all the crap, which is basically getting attention because of the algorithm and not because of the real interest of people. So my hope is that also at one point there will be so much crap, so much AI slop that we are building, like that, basically going on X and Facebook and whatever big social network, will be, and LinkedIn, whatever, will be so bad experience because it will be just fake information all the time, just AI information all the time, which actually kind of starts already, right? That people would go into places where they are more in control, and they because this will be also for humans the only way to stay sane, and not to go crazy by watching like weird stuff.
Exactly. That's what I see, and I hope that people will be able to find ways out of this. I don't know how optimistic I can be, to be fair, because when I'm trying to get people to, like, in the real life, to get to use Signal or something that is not even like this crazy extreme or anything utopian. I mean, Signal is still a centralized service that could just as easily be censored or disabled, made inoperative. I still get responses from people. Oh, I don't know this service. I've never heard of this before. Nobody is on it. It's not an easy task to get people to start thinking about these things from the perspective that we take for granted. And maybe you suggested this idea that when there is this harsh authoritarian outreach, that's when some people will start to think of these ways to circumvent that. They would be looking for ways to say no to that authoritarian overreach. And I don't know, maybe you're more optimistic than I am, but I
No,
somehow, yeah, just go ahead.
I mean, I'm optimistic by nature, and I prefer thinking about the good things that we can do. But I know it's going to go bad, and it's going to be
Okay.
very good. Yeah. So it's more like this, right? I know we're going down the drain, but what we are already seeing now is we are a big community working on the solution of tomorrow. And the solution of tomorrow are not just technological solution. There's also like philosophical and political and economical solutions. And those are starting to raise. And coming back on the utopia of the mesh network, I think I'm pretty convinced that most people, a big majority of people, will be okay into a completely authoritarian and fascist digital state. They will be okay as long as they have food and work, and they can enjoy the basic things of life. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but what is interesting, and this is why I was saying we need a financial an incentive model. We need to come up to a point where the free networks, so the networks which are where any authoritarian regime, and when I say authoritarian regimes, I even mean our Western democracies, which are still democracies in terms of the physical realm, but in the digital realm, they are not anymore. They were never democracies. Right? They are authoritarian states also, and under cover of democratic things. So my personal political aim is to find out how a digital democracy will exist in the future. Hopefully, I think it's possible to make it work, but it needs a lot of work. But one thing is sure is that it will depend on networks and hardware and software that have economical model which are more interesting for people than the authoritarian ones. So right now, abiding to the existing authoritarian model, or what we call surveillance capitalism, is providing more benefits economically for people than trying to spend time to understand how privacy works. But at one point, I hope there will be and that should be our aim, actually, to find out that to make systems which are cheaper and earn more, that the business model that we can create earn more than the surveillance and the authoritarian counter, like a model. And at one point, and when this happens, then people who don't care about are they tracked or not, but they care about making a bit more money, they will switch on our side. You see, I think that's one piece of the equation. We need to make systems which are better, that people will basically take because they are better off for their daily life, and even if they don't care about privacy.
That is a very interesting perspective, and I have to say that I pretty much share your entire idea. And I just want to know, what is, you don't have to answer, to be honest, but I'm always interested what's people's why, and what is your why? What is your ideological or political belief that is driving your motivation to do all of this?
So I want to stay human, basically. That's my first drive, right? I want to stay human. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to be somehow augmented or somehow changed by the technology around me, or improved or better off. Of course, there's a lot of things that we want to do which are cool. But I want to remain into a society where individuals have, each of them, the chance to be in control of their life and to make their own choices. And there are some philosophical debates. Some people say, well, actually, free choice doesn't exist even biologically, whatever. I don't care. My assumption is I want to remain free. And in a world where all your digital footprint is completely visible, basically what is happening is that there is a captation of your data, the captation of yourself is happening by more powerful groups. And as long as you have this captation of data, they will, big corp like Google, Facebook, Palantir, whatever, any kind of like company or system which is based on collecting data and profiling things, and who has access to a lot of power and much more power, compute power than you have as an individual. Basically, you're becoming enslaved to them because they know you better than you yourself, and so they have this edge on you, and they will provide you the right tools. You will work for them, and they will extract what is called the digital oil, right? Which is your personal data. It's actually they also use the term of digital oil. They will extract this. So you have an economic model where basically, like in Matrix, right? You're the battery, and you're providing the energy to these corporations. So how do you turn this around? This is the model I don't want to, and they will put you into like in Matrix, they will put you into a world that looks okay. They will put you in the comfort zone. They will not try to hurt you too much or to extract too much value out of you. But by doing so, we're losing all individual ability to think by ourselves. So how do we change this? Well, actually, it's one of the core elements is anonymity. It's basically in a digital world, a human, an individual should not have a digital footprint by default. By default, we are operating we are moving around into a digital world, and the digital world around us should be designed that when a human is interacting with the system, basically there is no footprint that is happening. So you're kind of invisible, and only when you want to actively say something, actively do something for the community, whatever, then of course you need to like open up and maybe you have a footprint, right? But then also it's the only time where you can have an impact on the society. If you don't want to have an impact, you're just like anonymous. And basically what is happening then, the powerful lose the ability to grab your data, and they lose the ability to earn value on you. So basically they lose power. And hopefully in a society which is by default anonymous online, digital anonymous, then you don't have this mechanism of power concentration into some people who own the resources, basically the compute resources. So hopefully a place where people who want to do things, they have to expose themselves, and they can earn they can benefit from this. And people who are a bit lazy or don't have the capabilities or whatever, they stay anonymous, and they are not being abused by the powerful ones. So yeah, it's basically, I want to remain human into a digital society.
I mean, that is increasingly more relevant. I am not on any social media. I mean, I'm on YouTube, right, with this, but I don't personally consume any social media content. And I very carefully curate whatever I want to consume, because I don't want to be fed with these algorithms. I don't want to be giving away my data. I don't want to be creating any footprint. And I don't want to be manipulated and have all the information fed to me being weaponized to get me to be, I don't know, docile, apathetic, to just be a good little consumer that does not think about these things from the perspective as you do, for instance, right? I've always been this way. I've always been kind of like very suspicious of whenever somebody was trying to onboard me on all of these consumerist ideas. So for me, like the privacy stuff and the digital freedom and all this stuff is just an extension of what I've always felt like was the right thing to do. And my biggest struggle is really just to get more people on board, because I feel like you kind of alluded to this, like as long as people are more or less like not necessarily comfortable, but just don't feel the immediate effects of authoritarianism or autocracy or centralized power, they don't share the same urge. And that's why I wanted to know, like, where is all of this stuff coming from in you, right? So is that maybe some kind of like upbringing or maybe religious identity? Like, why are you even focused on like understanding that what you're facing today is making you want to be human because you're facing a threat that's probably trying to not make you human, or like, where is that coming from?
Yeah, interesting question.
Again, you don't have to
where,
answer.
yeah, no, I'll try. I want to try. I never. I think you're the first one who tried to, like, okay, go further down where this urge is coming from. So it's a kind of psychotherapy. It's good. Uh, uh, I was really lucky to live in space, and I'm going to explain what means living in space for me. My father was a space engineer, so for 20 years he made his career at the European Space Agency.
Wow.
And so I was in the 80s, the 90s, and the early 2000s. So I was a kid growing up in the 80s and 90s in space. My head was in space, and that was. I mean, I had even an astronaut coming for dinner at home. We were watching like the space shuttle and the Ariane rockets going up every time we could. It was. I was visiting the headquarters of the European Space Agency and seeing satellites and whatever, and getting all the stories from my father. And I was seeing the tech. So basically, he was. When you understand how space industry at the time is working, is basically that they were creating, they were making crazy projects to just like to make some advance technological advance, and it was, I mean, so basically that was the environment I was in. So, and my father was testing all the new tech, so I saw internet from day one. Basically, 1992. I was 1992. I was not very old. Something like 12, 13, 14. No, 91. Before internet. So like yeah. No, I was 13, 14. 1991. I went to the office, and my father was showing me internet for the first time, because he had already internet at the office, and he says, you see, like, this is a hyperlink. You can click, there's a text, and you can click, and it brings you another page. I was like, wow, incredible. And then he said something I always remember, that will stick until I die. He will say, soon there will be pictures. So I saw internet without pictures. That just to tell you like how my father was. And then I started to I wanted to go to I studied law, and I'm always interested in how the society is working. So I studied law, and in '95 I went to university, and my father, who was also like very crazy still at the time, he said, "Well, you cannot go study law without having a computer and an internet connection. You know that you need to have the right tools, the proper tools." You say this today, it's pretty obvious, but in '95, out of the 2,000 people in the university the first year, we were only two who had a computer and an internet connection at home. So it was like crazy at that time. And then I had this sense of and then the third thing that happened, I was working because I grew up out. I grew up in Holland, and I grew up in an international sphere, basically. I started working at the UN, and I was interested in law. I was interested in digital, and I had the chance to participate into the World Summit of Information Society. I don't know if you remember, if you know this, but it was like a big summit that happened in 2003 and 2005. And I was a young civil servant of the UN at that time, and I was helping out the organization of the whole thing. And so one was in Geneva, and the other one was in Tunis. And Tunis was still during Ben Ali time, so it was still during the dictatorship of Ben Ali. And there, this is where people were gathered for a week around, from people from all the world, to talk about, oh, we have this great thing that is internet. And the people from the UN were bringing all the other people, saying, okay, what are we going to do with the internet? What good can we do with the internet? And then when we were talking to all the diplomats there, all the people who were coming, even from Western democracies, the only thing they had in their mind is, how do we control this shit out of how do we control everything? How do we manipulate people? How do we control? And I was saying, but you're a democracy, you cannot do this. Oh yeah, we are a democracy, but we still need to control. Security is important. So basically, since early 2000s, I saw that the objective of all the current governments of that time was total control over this internet thing. That was the philosophy they were in, right? From there, I was like, okay, we need to have that's going to go bad anyway, and we see things are going worse and worse and worse every year. So for me, it was the only way, basically, and maybe this is the psychology, the psychotherapy moment. Basically, for me, it's the only way to remain sane myself in a world that is going crazier, by helping building technology and concepts that will allow us to build the democracy of tomorrow.
Well, I really appreciate your response. I did not expect you to go as deep, but that was truly beautiful. And it is very inspirational. I want to know about these stories. I know that people are motivated by all kinds of things. And sometimes you can always just say, well, that's profit. They always want to make money. But you are doing something where you're electing to use your talents, where if you decided to apply them somewhere else, you would probably be able to make more money in working for the big tech, or working for the big investment financial industry. Kind of like the Graphene OS folks, they could have been working for the big tech, for big security firms. Instead, they are working on a project, giving it away for free, hoping to make a living out of donations. And I assume that you have come to these elective decisions yourself due to your deeply held personal belief, and I wanted people to see what that is. And so I truly appreciate it. So that means a lot to me, and I hope that will mean a lot to the community. And I'll just share a little bit that for me there's also psychotherapeutic, because I don't want to go into too many personal details, because I'm not sure if I'm ready to share that with the world. But I learned from, unfortunately, a very young age that You cannot really trust authority, even for that kind of authority where they really should take care of you and they should not be negligent and they should really be the ones that you have to rely on, because they are the only people that you can rely on. Trying to be as vague as possible here. And when that promise is broken, you as a young person, you can be very naive and you can try to hold that for a long time until you realize that there's no point. You just have to essentially escape, and that's what I had to do, and that's how I was able to shape my entire worldview around that anti-authoritarianism. I cannot just bring myself to accept anything, because I know that it can just backfire so spectacularly. And when it works fine, I know that people have good families. You shared your beautiful story with your father. That's really beautiful. But not everybody has that, and when it doesn't work, then it really sucks. And that's what made me be really convinced that I don't want anyone to have to go through that. And I want to give people the ability to empower themselves, to free themselves from this, because sometimes there is just no one else to help you, no one else to save you, and you just have to literally fight your way out of that. And when I see tools like NYM or anything else, Tor, even Signal, what I see in them are tools that give people power, individuals. They give individuals power to liberate
Absolutely.
themselves. And that's what I see, and that's what I want to see more of. I want to see the ability of individuals to not submit to authoritarians. I don't know if that makes any sense. You don't have to identify with anything that I just said there. I just didn't want you to feel alone in that beautiful moment that you share there.
No, I do completely concur. But maybe to give also a small segue there, I really love also some of the work that like we're a community that is like very much inspired by people around us. And like I said at one point, I said we're building the tools, we're building the concepts, we're building the economy, we're building the philosophy, and also the ideologies around it. And I've been very much inspired by people that I'm grateful that I can meet and that I can talk with, which is great. For example, I don't know if you know Amir and Rose. Amir Taki and Rose O'Leary. They've been working on DarkFi, so it's a big shout out to them, of course. Rose has been the one who's working now on the Lunapunk, which is so I was pretty much influenced because I was lucky to see them very early, also when I was in university, to be inspired by the cypherpunk movement. And she's giving a new layer to cypherpunk, to the cypherpunk movement through the Lunapunk. And she's bringing a vision which is kind of the next layer, trying to build more an utopia rather than some basic ideas that the cypherpunk world had. She's bringing this to the next level. Amir Taki has been very important into bringing some political concepts which are unknown in the technological world, inspired from what he lived in Kurdistan. Basically, it's called democratic confederalism, and it's a form of political system that I and he and more and more people believe that it's a model which is really pretty much adapted to the digital space, because it's based on different consensus living next to each other. And it's a bit what we're doing with all the different blockchain worlds and the different models that we have, and they live it to each other, and they all have a purpose, basically, to build this kind of common infrastructure. And so you could do this, and also. Of course, I work with Harry Halpin, which is very inspiring. That brings a lot of inspiration. With him, I was able to learn really how anonymity is working, and is working in a technical way. And then you have people like Maxim Orlovsky, who has been working on RGB. I don't know if you know him. He has also some like small text on. He considered himself as a cypherpunk, but he's a very dark cypherpunk, even darker than Amir and Rose. And he's been working on some texts which are really interesting, also about anonymity and the fact that the society itself, the whole society, should be invisible from any observation, because that is going to what will make us survive through the ages. It's going to be this characteristic. So yeah, all of this allowed me to and so my role in there is, because I'm a lawyer, and I have this. I'm a bit technical because I can code, but I'm not an engineer myself. I'm a lawyer, and so my contribution, most of it, is to translate all these concepts that are coming from the digital world into words and concepts that can be understood by the traditional world. So this is, for example, where the concept of the right to digital integrity, which I designed in Switzerland and was accepted in the constitution of two places. And basically, when the question was asked to people, do you want to have the right to digital integrity? Meaning it's the same as your physical and mental integrity. You are protected. 94% of the people voted yes in Geneva, so it was like overwhelming yes.
Wow.
And basically, the right to digital integrity is just to say that if someone is touching to your data, it's actually bad. It's actually a crime, right? That's the core concept behind. You don't touch data of people because it's like touching your body. And so, but yeah, so and this is going to be a legal tool that we're going to use in the future to enforce, to provide anonymity to people, because then anonymity becomes the tool that is enforcing a fundamental right, which is your right not to be touched digitally. It's a self-protection tool, right? So I'm doing this work of like that. That's my contribution, and I'm really happy to live those moments, because right now, like I said, the world is going shit really bad. It's going really into the wrong direction, but at the same time, we are building more and more stories that we can tell to people, which looks like something that could be a solution for the future, right? Because when you just read the cypherpunk texts from the 80s or the 90s, they just basically it says, okay, well, there's the digital world, don't touch us. We have our own ways. We want to do our own stuff, but don't bother us, right? It's very limited what I'm saying, but it's kind of like this.
Mm-hmm.
Now we are in a phase where we can say, hey, actually, we can design a whole society. Political system could work like this. The business system could work like this. The industry could work like this, and so on. Right? We see those spaces coming up, and we can start mapping them to create a new utopia. And the changes will only happen when two things come together. Is that people are really fed up with the old system that they are living in, and they are aware that there's a utopia, or there's another system which is available, and that the cost of moving to this new system is lower than the cost of staying in the old system. And when this balance is shifting, It doesn't happen every time in history, right? It happened in the 18th century when during the French Revolution they had an old system and they had incentive to move to a new system. But because at that time they knew that there was the revolution, the industrial revolution was coming. Like the industry was booming, like they were making a lot of findings. They were trying to automate stuff. They had a lot of hope, and they were like investing in new territories around the world. So they did this shift, and we have to come up with this. We're still in the moment before this shift. So that's why I'm saying we're going to go bad first before it go better. But we still need to work on these concepts and try them out and see what is working and what is not working, because it helps the general population to have kind of a understanding of, there could be an alternative. And so I think what I'm trying to fight the most against is when you talk to normies right now we're talking about digital sovereignty, and you're talking about like the dependence one country can have from another. A lot of people say, I say to a lot of people, yeah, just use Signal, just don't use Microsoft, use Linux. And a lot of people say, well, we don't have an alternative. We don't have an option, right? And I say, yes, you have. You have Linux. Oh, it's too complicated, right? So there's a cost to see the alternative. And so for this, the world needs to go bad, but the alternative needs to be. So I work on the alternative rather pushing the world to go bad. You have some people like they call themselves EAC or accelerationists, right? And so they want to see the world go bad. So to have this new world coming up as fast as possible. But I think it's not possible to push the world in a bad situation if you don't have an alternative, which is being built. The world is, of course, the world is going to find out by itself. But I prefer to remain sane in this whole thing. I prefer just focusing on building this new future. Yeah.
So maybe this will be my last question for you. Speaking of the world going bad, what do you think is happening? What do you think is the big thing that's currently that bad?
Yeah, so the big picture is going to take decades, but it's going to be the shift of the monopoly of violence. So the shift of monopoly of violence is not something also people witnesses every generation. So currently the monopoly of violence is owned by the states, the countries, right? With an administration and a military system, and they have the military and the police, right? And they have the monopoly of violence based on a certain technology, which is gunpowder, basically. And basically gunpowder, if you go back into the time it was really implemented at a massive scale, so let's say 17th century, something like this created the shift of the monopoly of violence back then. Right? So there's a book that describes this very well, which is the Sovereign Individual. I don't know if you read it, but it's really interesting in that regard. And it's actually one of these main themes in the book, is that there is this monopoly of violence which is shifting, and which has shifted once from people with swords and like knights and swords. Then suddenly you had gunmen, people with guns, and guns with industry was cheaper. So basically you could raise an army and defeat a clan of knights. And now we're going to see this happening. The technological change, of course, is computers, computers, and any kind of like logic in there, like software and AI software, whatever you want, like hardcore logic in there. Of course, it's cryptography and it's drones, right? And so the mix of the three you're starting to see the picture rising happening in Ukraine. It's the first picture where we're moving into a drone war, right? And so basically the drones with compute power and cryptography, all of this together, and of course the logistic which is behind, so the industrial base, which is 3D printers, decentralized logistics and printing and building stuff, which is what we are seeing in Ukraine right now. All of this is going to build up the new violence mechanism, right? So we're going to shift from guns to this kind of like drone warfare, drone violence control. And then the whole question is, who is controlling this? Whoever is controlling this force is going to have the monopoly of violence. And what is interesting is that my theory, and that's a theory, right? So we will see how far it goes. The monopoly of violence with guns, when you have to raise an army, needs to be controlled by a central state, because in order to raise an army, you need social control on people. You need a culture, you need myth for the society to push people to fight for your cause and for your country, right? And this is how you can raise army. Otherwise, you don't have an army to raise. And then you have the industrial complex to give weapon to each of them, and then you can raise an army. And the bigger who's raising an army, and the bigger who controls all the soldier and the police officers, is the one who's controlling the power. And you have it, and so what is what in the sovereign individual, they were claiming that the democratic system that we built was the most adapted to this to the system at that time. But here the debate will be between centralized and decentralized organizations. So at the beginning, the drone will be taken over by centralized system, like governments, like the government of Ukraine, the government of Russia are building drones, armies of drones, and they're controlling them, right? And it will be a centralized system, and they will give this. They are giving this more and more to AI, right? So the drones will be actually, at one point it will be kind of like a mixed control. It will be like one big AI with one government or one powerful organization who's controlling those drones and providing logistic to those drones, and they will be the one in control. They will have the monopoly of violence, which means that the political system that will derive from this will be based on this very centralized and authoritarian system. And so what we have to design is a place, if we want to remain human in all of this, we have to design a society and a political system where a decentralized network of people, which in my sense will be anonymous. It will be an anonymous group of people, digitally anonymous. Maybe we know each other physically, but digitally anonymous. With our own industry, with our own principle based on cryptography, and with the help of some kind of like AI compute also. But basically, because, and we will be controlling swarms and producing swarms of drones, but because we are decentralized at one point, we will have an edge on the centralized network, and there will be a shift. So this is when the political power will also shift to a decentralized world, when basically we make this shift of the violence, the monopoly of violence, into a system which is by design privacy friendly, anonymous, decentralized, and based on political systems which are not centralized also. And this is why it's going to go bad, because a shift in the monopoly of violence is never fun for the one who's losing the power. Mm-hmm. So the actual government, and we see this happening already now. Basically, what they're doing now they're already losing the power, and we don't even have the drones yet in Western countries, right? We have cryptography, decentralization of the communication. We have already a lot of things happening, um, and um, and because they are losing power, what they are doing overreach. They're doing laws, surveillance law, and they're trying to mingle. They try to micromanage as much as they can in the society. And I think the COVID crisis was a wake up call for a lot of people, because they saw how the governments with all the digital tools were trying to micromanage everyone in the society, instead of doing like things that we did for centuries, like just like big quarantine, like um, stuff. I mean, the society has been dealing with diseases since. In a long way for a long time, and we had good ways of dealing with this. And there it changed, because they trying to micromanage the whole society. So people really saw. I mean, a lot of people got a wake up call there, and were really afraid of what happened at that moment. But basically and so when you are losing your power as a government, the only thing that you have left is the violence, is the monopoly of violence. So you're sending cops to, like in UK, where they're sending cops because you said something online, and they sent you at your home to check for you. So yeah, that's going to be the shift, because at one point, if the state is not providing anything anymore to you except they have the monopoly of violence, and on the other side you have all the technology, and you have a new industrial platform based on decentralized tech and printing and drones, and those drones are working better for you in the decentralized world, then shifting the monopoly of violence is actually something that will happen. But it will take decades. But so I'm pretty dark in the next indeed 10, 20 years, because we're seeing this whole appearing. Of course, people have their own temporary incentives. Like the current geopolitics is also it's made by humans, so everyone has this short view that they have right now. But I think this change in the monopoly of violence is going to be the one of the most violent things we will see, and we will see it in our lifetime. I think that's for sure.
Well, I have to say that, like, I could sit down with you in a pub somewhere, definitely, or in a bar.
We'll do that. We'll do that one day.
Yeah, that would be very interesting to really explore this whole idea. But I have to really be thankful for all the time that you gave me, and all the answers. You were able to answer anything that I had to ask, and much more. So that I really appreciate. I don't always get to talk to everybody that I want to talk to, because sometimes people are just not really willing to answer these tough questions, and I really appreciate you coming out to face this publicly and to talk to my community. And this will definitely serve me for sure for a long time, to inspire me to make even more content about all of the things that you have talked about in this talk of ours. So if you have anything that you would like to say on top of this, you're very welcome to do so. But I've kind of ran out of my questions for now, and I would definitely love to do this again if you're down for that.
Let's do this again. But really, thank you very much for the discussion, and it's cool. We went to places that were a bit different than in other podcasts. So I appreciate this. That's cool because of your questions and your. So thank you for this also.